Hi, everyone. How are you? Are you managing all of the energies that are just tearing you apart inside and out and yanking and tugging you along for the ride? There is a lot going on. So we've got our new moon coming up this week, and I want to talk about the tarot cards that I've called into the reading for us. I'm taking notes already, so I'm going to refer to them, but our first card is Four of Swords. This is the center of the Celtic Cross reading this week into just over the cusp of the weekend, I guess. So talk about time to rest and repair, having lots of deep inner work going on below the surface, affecting your ability to be present in your own life in some ways, right? And feeling the sense of being cut off from yourself even. So the new moon itself is in Scorpio, so it's an emotional moon anyway. It's interesting. I always like this card because of the heart in the background. So anybody from the outside seeing that, not knowing what was going on behind those walls, might guess that there is repair to the heart, or that the heart is a sacred place. And I think we're learning how to deal with our heart and its own emotional truths during this cycle. And we're being called on to continually cut out that doesn't belong, and being willing to, rest and repair. You can't be moving through everything at warp speed all the time. We still have our Mars retrograde going direct this week, so that in itself is going to help make us feel like things are going to move forward a little more. All right, so Four of Swords began this, and then crossing it is this Cup card. So when you have Eight of Cups, I often think about, you're starting a new journey and you can't wait to leave because so many bad things happened that you just want to leave it all in the past and you just want to move on. But the influence of this card has more to do with being willing to take along on the journey that which helped propel the journey to begin with. So, the calling that you need to move forward would be something to pay attention to. Often, as we're embarking on a new journey, we have baggage. So at this new journey and this new moon cycle, what baggage are you leaving behind, and what baggage are you deciding that you don't need to take along? And this is very large because we've been working on a lot of our first chakra issues for months and months and months already this year, excavating and bringing things up and out, and things just flying to the surface and being, begged to be looked at. So this is just another step along the way, understanding that, all right, I did purge, I did take the time to excavate. So now I get to see what's left and where I'm going with it. So these two are definitely a hand-in-hand journey because they're both very emotional, right? Like you feel wounded when you have to rest this much. This is almost like you're on the brink of death. You're crossing over. The possibility is there. Like it's been an intense fight. There have been intense battles. The battles that you're dealing with. Are you going to live and die through this? Are you going to, conquer? Are you going to conquer and be able to take care of yourself? So pretty intense energies, my friends. And guess who's showing up the base card position is our friendly King of Swords. Oh, King of Swords, King of Cups, sorry. Luckily the swords aren't in this one. Well, we started with the Four of Swords, so King of Cups is always pointing towards mastering our emotions and being strong enough to understand that they're here to begin with, right? Like the proper way to work with your emotions is not to see them and stuff them into oblivion, but to notice them, bring them to the surface, allow them to work through all the other planes of your own internal existence, through your emotional body, through your mental body, through the planes of your existence in the physical world, and being willing to kind of meet the inner and the outer in the same way, you know, wearing your emotional heart on the sleeve and being strong enough to defend yourself for it, and being willing in your own mastery to work towards the evolved state of, you know, equilibrium and your own inner serenity. The problem with this influence this week is we still have Neptune doing all kinds of amazing things to us, which include giving us you know, delusional thoughts and processes that would hook our emotions into believing that things are a certain way. You know, so if you're rigid in your approaches, you may deny yourself the expanded awareness that you can gain from just being open to other possibilities during this phase, right? Like, um, so King of Cups knows how to ride out the emotional storms of his own life and not derail components of the structures that it's always already built, right? So you need to be aware of your own self-destructive components and tendencies during this period, or you could be your own worst enemy as you're about to evolve into something really beautiful and more wholehearted. You may derail and, you know, yeah, you still, during this Mars energy, again, everybody wants to fight in some way, right? We're fighting for something all the time, every day, trying to make sense of it all. So no fighting during this period. It's not going to be helpful. And so next in our journey along this Celtic cross is the moon. And I do want to point out that although it's not the next card, it is opposite to it, and it is the strength card showing the sun. So this immediately made me think of as above, so below, because the moon is going to illuminate our inward workings. And the sun is really trying to pull us into our own strengths, right? Spirit wants us to live our most exalted selves in this life. And to me, these cards both show, yeah, you're going to be basically working with the strengths that you have by meeting the weaknesses that you fear, mostly. That's really the potential here. And it's also pointing to the fact that we do have eclipses coming up. I can't remember when exactly, but it's towards the end of November. It's actually around the corner, I'm pretty sure. So this is making me think that we're being re-triggered in some of those predominant focuses that the eclipse called in to begin with. You know, relationships and relationships to everything, as always. Your relationship to yourself is going to determine more than anything the outcomes of all the other relationships you have in the world. In between the sun and the moon here with the strength and the moon card is an upside down emperor. And he's shown up in all of these last months as the government authority figure. So if you're, you know, a minor, this could be your parents, but if you're already a major, if you're a major and you're already in your own life, then, you know, you're probably dealing with the realities of governmental shifts and things like that, and head turning with ways things are unfolding, and the uncertainties that the lack of proper governing actually that's contributed to the mess we're in as a collective. So I think that there is this sense of, how has my government betrayed me? And that is part of our wound that we're dealing with as well, and understanding that if you're still working in the fear of survival and too worried about, I'm going to perish, that's going to be the natural order, then this could be a tough time for you, because you buy into a lot of the things that you might really not be all that affected by on an individual basis. So, you just gotta, I would work on governing yourself during this whole week, and just try to figure out who's ruling who in there, and how are you meeting yourself, and are you willing to live in your own truth of your own mismanagement of your own soul growth, right? Like we have opportunities again to work with ourselves, or to dismantle the accomplishments that we've received. So sometimes dismantling is really beautiful creativity, because you're called upon to, and it's part of your evolutionary process. The gift is to being able to determine whether, which is which and what is up. And yeah, um, so with the inner work that's being asked with this main card in the spread is go inward into the heart and come at everything from love. Then, this is a strategizing period as well. If you meet your problems with your heart, even if they are potentially dangerous or unnerving or stressful or whatever they may be, your challenges, they could be health at this point too, for what's going on with Mars and bones and skeletal and things like that, and aches and muscles and whatnot. So yeah, this is just, some of this is choice too, right? Like every day we have the choice and our free will to wake up and embrace the world open-heartedly, or, hold off from the world in a closed-off way. So what meets you in the world will also bear some resemblance to how you meet the world. We do have this influence. I think this is interesting, this card, Ace of Wands reversed, because we are in a lot of ways feeling like we've lost our momentum regardless, and we're looking for our signs from God. What is the next step? How do we do this? A lot of us are in a, what I would call a blind phase where we don't get necessarily to see a lot of the steps, where it's more obvious. It's like the universe kind of goes silent a little bit here and there, and then we have to work on our inner reserves and figure out what our information channels are actually telling us, and where that information coming from is originating, and can be trusted, and all that other stuff. So we are still dealing with, how do we trust ourselves as we're coalescing into more spiritual beings anyway, right? Like this definitely set us off this year in this inward odyssey journey for those that were a little behind, and for those that weren't fully committed. I think it did give us some time for internal reflections, and now we're kind of waiting for this hand of God to come out and just show us one way or the other where we're going. And it's upside down. And amidst this whole crazy kind of destiny provoking influence, and alongside it is the Wheel of Fortune. So where we were dealing in the earlier spread with the emotional and mental planes and the real physical existence of day-to-day life, this part of the spread is now moving, in my opinion, and to what I'm seeing, into the more spiritual um, aspects of it, as well as that sense of what you sow is what you reap. And ultimately, it's your relationship with your own internal God force or higher power, or whatever you call it, and connect to it. It's still pretty much the same. It's the source from which all comes. And so here you've got the hand of God and the wheel of fortune. Where are you in this wheel? And I was feeling into it earlier and thinking about, what was my notes? I did some automatic writing on this. Let me just refer to it. Wheel of Fortune. Okay, so Spirit was basically saying we all have opportunities to contribute to the planet in our own ways, and whether that's personally, interpersonally, in just really close relationships in our lives, or in our careers, or just in random acts of interludes with people out there that you don't really know, but you may have an impact on or an influence over. So, are you able to receive information and love and guidance from the universe just in the ways that you yourself may be spreading it out amongst the world? And how is that aligning with where you feel through your emotional body that you need to be and go? What's keeping you from moving through the wheels of your own fortune building years? Um, So there's this possibility for a lot of people this year, while there may be doom and gloom and death and disarray around us everywhere, there are a lot of people who are starting new anyway and rebuilding in ways that are serving themselves better in their own sense of who they are in a divine world, without the false gods that our real worlds constantly present to us. So the ability for you to connect to really what is yours in the world is important. Um, yeah, it's just there's a lot of possibility here for those that are in tune with their own inner senses, who are already, been working through, can I trust this information for myself? How do I work with it if I can? What's my next step? You know, you may feel broken in certain senses, but you are not fragmented. It's, this is a rebuild cycle for a lot of people in healthier, more in tuned ways. Then we've got lovers coming up, and we've got Page of Cups. And I know Venus and Mars are going to be at each other towards the end of the week. So I would think that if you are in relationships that aren't quite your fit, that you would be seeing signs of that along the way this week, as well as trying to come to terms with, well, what are the strings attached here? What's keeping me in this? Why am I out of this? What's going on? Have I committed to my own moral demise by staying in this relationship? Like, I think that there are people that are really going to be looking at things here and trying to head some foibles off at the past. And if you're tuned into that Wheel of Fortune and the Hand of God energy and knowing it's all out there anyway for the taking, then you can kind of gravitate and navigate towards better relationships all around, right? So facing your inner truth, of course, is going to be, it just can't be all about what it looks like to you, right? It's got to be what it feels like to you. And um, is this helping you live an exalted self realization, or is it diminishing your ability to do so? So yeah, we have a lot of choices to make. It's almost like I feel it as yeah, are you in or you out? Are you committed to yourself or not? And how are you standing in your way? And how are you allowing the supports of the universe to find you? Because that's the thing, right? Like, regardless of whether you think you're succeeding or not, whether you've reached this echelon of perfection or whatever it is in your eyes that you've had these desires and these things that you've been chasing after and ploddingly moving towards, right? Some of them are ego driven and some of them are divine driven. So if you can get to the point where you're marrying the two in a way that work and coalesce together, then you're doing the best you can, I think, in these uncertain times, right? Like, it's hard to, as much as some of these influences are asking us to dissolve our ego structures and be more open to these other perceptions and other aspects of life and ways that we can use our own energies to propel us forward towards our true desires, then yeah, holy wow, it's a lot to work with, right? It's a lot to kind of learn how to work with. And this is the other thing about this card, is these are tools, these knives, these swords, these yeah, even the chamber is a tool. It's a safe, it's a safe respite, but you still get the sense that it's like, whoa, deep and dark work here. Like, it's not all light and airy fairy right now. It's calling us to go deep. It's demanding it. So yeah, so don't resist, right? You cannot resist what your soul wants for you. And at some point you were in alignment with that, whether you're in alignment with it or not. It really was part of what got you here to begin with, was that, you signed that terms and conditions agreement, and you came here with this idea that you were going to do this. And if you didn't, if you're not the one that likes to find details in life generally, then, unfortunately, this is the part where you go back and go, I need to look at my terms and conditions with my own divine spirit and sense of what I need to do here, and make sure that I'm moving closer to it rather than walking away from it. And you don't have to run towards everything that you may be resisting right now, but you do need to take small steps towards it. Yeah, so that is the thing. This blind faith phase 2 would demand us to take the steps regardless of knowing whether we make it on to our final destination. And many would say the journey is the destination anyway. And yeah, so hang in there, and may the force be with you. And you're already doing a lot for yourself, and this whole idea of self-care and micromanaging some of your needs is still very important during this phase. Also is making sure, back to this sort of delusional Neptune influence that is happening this week too, is, just keep in mind that you don't need to believe everything that you think all the time, and you don't need, I would believe everything that you feel to a certain extent emotionally. I think that there's some, well, again, you still have to be careful in that, because you could sink into all kinds of sort of negative thought processes during a phase like this, and actually, because of Neptune, believe the content to the point where, again, you're self-destructing rather than growing in, you're growing off, kind of deal. So yeah, don't mutate the purpose here by allowing these sort of false gods of reality that are sweeping across your visual plane or through your thought plane, that they're like, don't give them too much credence this week, as much as you do just watch what they're you know proposing to do to you, and just let them, you know, wash through like clouds. That's what I think. Neptune, I think that that's part of the danger in these Neptune phases, is if you believe them too much, if you fall for it, or you fall for these delusional images, then as much as they may feel real, they are an illusion, and they do works to well, it's part of that self-destruct, right? It's a lot of times of these phases that people choose a suicide over sticking it out, because it's really easy to believe, because you're so far into this sort of unreality, that you are the unreality, and then it is real. So it's an energetic thing. I see a lot when I work on people. So it's just like a fog that just comes in and keeps you from seeing what really is, the sort of higher global perspective. So yeah, so that would be my caution for this week, as well as just battening down the hatches as always, as far as just your own sense of the appropriate and what you can and can't do, like having realistic goals at this point as well, instead of unrealistic, right? Like yeah, there's a lot coming together, so it does take time behind the scenes for things to coalesce properly too. So more patience and just allowing things to unfold rather than pushing through and forward and running too far forward at this point. There'll be soon enough time to run forward. You'll be dragged forward actually probably at lightning speed in the coming weeks anyway. So all of this lag behind where you just kind of want to fall into the couch and fall asleep would be, yeah, I would succumb to it for sure. Like if you're feeling really like you need more time to rest, then don't ignore that. Spirit often works during these cycles in rearranging things internally so that you can hold the energies more favorably to your own system instead of feeling like you're, um, not at ease in your own skin. You could have that feeling of, oh my God, I'm crawling out of my skin. I'm so restless kind of a deal. But so definitely keep your physical exercise up during this period as well. And may the force be with you. Doing great, even when you don't think you are, that is for sure, because there's so much you don't see. So have a great week.